My name is Emily Finnegan. I'm with the Local Government Commission, as one of the water project managers, and I am so pleased to welcome you all to this evening's Drinking Water Forum. I want to begin by welcoming Reina Rodriguez, who will be doing interpretation for tonight's event. Reina, I'll hand things over to you.
Welcome, everybody. We will have simultaneous interpreting occurring. Así es que para todos los que se han unido, si tenemos a algún participante que habla solo español, si tenemos interpretación simultánea, si miran abajo de su pantalla, va a haber un icono que parece un mundo. Y si ustedes seleccionan el icono, ustedes van a poder elegir el lenguaje de español. Seleccionan español y pueden poner el audio original en silencio para que de esa manera solo escuchen español. Bienvenidos a la Junta.
Thank you, Reina. Before we begin, I'm going to walk through some of the technical pieces of this evening, although I'm sure many of you are Zoom professionals at this point. We're just going to walk through and make sure that everyone is on board with what we will be, the platform that we'll be working with this evening. So as Reina just explained in Spanish, we will be using simultaneous translation. We aren't anticipating any Spanish speakers this evening based on registration, but just in case, it's important for me to know when I can create breakout groups later if we need a Spanish-speaking breakout group. So please make sure that you're on the English channel by selecting that little globe at the bottom of your panel. And if you're able to add an EN in your name by renaming yourself, that would be great and help us out with facilitation. We're going to ask you to stay muted during our speakers' presentations, but have no fear, there will be plenty of time for Q&A and discussion during today's agenda. As you can see, we'll also be recording and taking screenshots throughout. You can always turn your video off, although we encourage you to keep your video on if you're able to. It is much more engaging, and we do love to see your faces. There are some options to view on Zoom. If you would like to view everyone's faces all at once, you'll see in that top right corner, you can change the view to speaker view or gallery view when we're in broader group discussion. When you turn it on gallery, you'll see more people. And then in the bottom panel, you'll see the toolbar, and that's where you'll add your participants to see who's with us today, as well as the other functions that were on the previous screen, to add your audio and video, to use the chat function, and to use those reactions that we encourage you to use throughout if you're loving something or want to give a round of applause to our speakers. In the chat function and participant function, you'll see who we have with us today. You'll also have the option to raise your hand, which we'll be using during the Q&A. You can use the chat function to chat everyone as well as one individual person. So it's a great way to get to know one another. And to get us started here, I'd love if everyone could use the chat to type your name, a brief sentence about what brings you here today. I also want to note that we have a few esteemed members of the Solano Groundwater Sustainability Agency Collaborative, or GSA Collaborative, with us this evening. So if you do represent a GSA or work with a GSA, we'd love for you to indicate that in the chat as well. While you're all sharing on the chat, I want to take a moment to provide a little bit of background on how our team at the Local Government Commission fits into the broader group that's working on the Solano Groundwater Sustainability Plan, or GSP. Our next speaker is going to talk much more about the plan and the 5 agencies that are responsible for it. But in addition to those 5 agencies, there's a team of experts working on writing the technical analysis, the education, and the outreach for this plan to make sure the document is reflective of community priorities and current conditions. So you'll see the Ludo Franscalamini team is at the top. They're a team of consultants that are really working on the nuts and bolts of this plan and accessing and managing all of the modeling necessary to understand how much water we have now and in the future, how it flows, and who's using it. From there, you'll see the Ag Innovations team, which leads the overall public engagement and facilitation. And we are joined by Genevieve Taylor, Susanna Sossman, and Lupe Garcia from the Ag Innovations team. They'll be helping us with some of the breakout group facilitation later this evening. And then last but not least, you'll see our team led by the Freshwater Trust. And our group is funded under a Department of Water Resources Proposition 1 grant to support outreach and engagement to disadvantaged and underrepresented communities who may be most vulnerable to changing groundwater conditions. So tonight we have Jen Meadis with us from the Freshwater Trust, as well as my colleagues Danielle Dolan, Atlee Keller, and Deanna Vos-Gonzalez. All four of them will be supporting facilitation this evening. We also were planning to have Allison Martin with us from Solano RCD, but it doesn't look like she's with us just yet, but she may be joining us a little later as well. So our team is hosting this event tonight in response to questions and concerns we received from community members throughout the public engagement process about their drinking water and tap water quality and how groundwater sustainability planning will impact their water quality. There are many people and agencies involved in managing your tap water, so we're bringing them all together this evening to share more about how their agencies manage drinking water locally, how it's connected to groundwater planning, and what you can do to learn more about your drinking water. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to our first speaker, Vicki Kretzinger, who is the president and senior principal hydrologist at Ludorf and Scalamini. Vicki, I'll turn things over to you.
Great, thank you, Emily. I'm going to share screen. And is that viewable?
Yep.
Okay, great. Well, thank you everyone for coming this evening. We really appreciate you being here tonight. And prior to presentations by state and local county panelists, I'm going to be providing introductory information on the California Sustainable Groundwater Management Act and the work underway to develop a groundwater sustainability plan for the Solano Subbasin, with particular emphasis tonight on groundwater quality. So groundwater and surface water resources are both really important to meet water demands for the people living in the Solano Subbasin. Community members that are connected to a public water system may receive only surface water, or they may receive surface water and groundwater. And this depends on the time of the year or the location in the area served by the water system. So tonight our focus is on groundwater sources for drinking water. Groundwater's had a historical legislation that resulted in evaluation of its groundwater basins, but a significant advance in actual groundwater management only occurred in 1992 with Assembly Bill 3030. And other efforts to improve groundwater management continued to occur after that. However, it wasn't until 2012 when the severe drought began in California when key actions began to occur to address urgent needs and provide the foundation for sustainable management of the state's resources, water resources. The intensifying drought conditions led to legislation to provide for sustainable groundwater management in the state, and this led to the adoption of the Sustainable Groundwater Management Act in September 2014. This new act, otherwise referred to in short as SGMA, became effective in January 2015. So California was the last state in the nation to adopt a statewide system for groundwater regulation. However, now California has a really robust framework to accomplish sustainable groundwater management. A key hallmark of SGMA is this emphasis on local agencies coming together to accomplish groundwater management locally. If local agencies are unable to coordinate and accomplish the SGMA requirements, however, then the state becomes the so-called backstop. They're the regulatory body that steps in to achieve groundwater sustainability. So California, overall, it has 531 groundwater basins and subbasins. There's a lot of basins. The Solano Subbasin is one of the many California basins that are required to comply with SGMA and to prepare a groundwater sustainability plan by January 31, 2022. So coming right up, not so long from now. Solano Subbasin is the area shown here on this map in the black outline. This is the area for the development of the Groundwater Sustainability Plan. There's one plan being developed for the entire Solano Subbasin, and there are many groundwater sustainability agencies, as shown by the colored areas within this black outline, that are collaborating to develop this plan. These groundwater sustainability agencies include the Solano County GSA, the Solano Irrigation District GSA, the City of Vacaville GSA, Sacramento County GSA, and a collection of GSAs, otherwise, grouped in the Delta region. So there are four main components that comprise the groundwater sustainability plan under development, and these include describing groundwater conditions in the subbasin, defining what amount of groundwater can be pumped on average over a long period of time without resulting in undesirable effects. This is to ensure that groundwater resources are sustainable. Also, identifying projects or management actions that are needed to help ensure sustainable conditions, and ultimately the preparation and adoption of a groundwater sustainability plan by the due date. So this evening we'll focus on the work being done to understand groundwater conditions with a particular focus on groundwater quality in the subbasin. So there are many regulatory requirements for the analyses that are required to be included in the groundwater sustainability plans. But I'm going to focus here on the requirements relating to describing groundwater conditions, including groundwater quality. So each plan is to provide a description of the current and historical groundwater conditions in the basin. And each plan is also to describe the groundwater quality issues that may affect the supply and the beneficial uses of groundwater, including those that might occur due to known groundwater contamination sites and plumes. Through the implementation of SIGMA, the area leaders are implementing a groundwater sustainability plan that facilitates the management and use of groundwater in a manner that can be maintained for the future without causing these undesirable results. Altogether, there are 6 undesirable results that are called out in the groundwater sustainability plan regulations. In other words, these are effects or conditions that are to be avoided in the future through the use of groundwater. But the one we're discussing this evening focuses on management actions to avoid significant and unreasonable degradation of groundwater quality. And to do this, we need to consider local, state, and federal water quality standards applicable to the basin. We need to recognize that the Solano Subbasin groundwater sustainability agencies are not responsible for regulatory programs enforced by other agencies, meaning where there are contamination sites that are under the purview of these other state or federal agencies, these are not sites that fall under the responsibility of the groundwater sustainability agencies. However, groundwater sustainability agencies are responsible for groundwater quality conditions that could become affected by sustainability projects. For example, if a groundwater recharge project affected the movement of contaminants in the vicinity of a regulated contamination site, then the GSAs need to be very aware of that. So there are a lot of human activities that involve the use of food and other products that were produced with or composed of a whole host of chemicals. This slide illustrates some of the many things that we do that are beneficial to produce and consume food, create products that we use in our everyday lives, or manage waste from humans and animals. Oops. These activities are essential to our sustenance, livelihoods, and well-being, but they bring with them waste products that, if not carefully managed, can pollute the land, the surface water, and the groundwater. There are also many types of natural or synthetic chemicals that can occur in groundwater used for drinking and household uses. Examples of these chemical constituents that can be detected in groundwater include aesthetic compounds such as calcium and magnesium that make our water hard, iron that can cause staining on household fixtures, or compounds such as sulfur that can contribute to odors that are detected in the water. There are other compounds like arsenic, chromium, and even nitrate that can be often naturally occurring, or they can result from man-made influences. These constituents can make the water unsafe if they're present at levels above drinking water standards. Other potentially harmful compounds include synthetic or man-made compounds such as fertilizers, pesticides, and petroleum products. So a lot of you, I'm sure, know about nitrate, but just as a recap, it's a really common chemical found in most fertilizers, manure from all animals, and human waste. It's a contaminant that can make drinking water unsafe for drinking when above a certain level. It's not a chemical that you can see, smell, or taste in water, and it can't be boiled away. And we care about the drinking water standard associated with this constituent. There's a legal regulatory limit for how much nitrate can be present in a public water system. In California, the state regulatory requirement, this standard is nitrate is nitrogen, and the standard is 10 milligrams per liter. As part of work that's been conducted on behalf of an entity called the Central Valley Salinity Coalition, which is really many stakeholders, agencies, organizations, valley-wide data have been collected and then mapped to understand the distribution of salt and nitrate in groundwater throughout the Central Valley. This map shows the distribution of nitrate, and it's the distribution of nitrate in an upper part of the groundwater system across the Central Valley. And the colors that you see on this map show the levels of nitrate in groundwater ranging from levels below the nitrate standard that I just mentioned. The lowest nitrate levels here are those shown in green colors, and increasing nitrate levels are shown in the yellow to orange colors. Those areas that are shown in red, especially in the San Joaquin Valley, are where wells with nitrate test data exceed the nitrate drinking water standard, and the water may be unsafe to drink. Many small communities in the Central Valley, including in the Solano Subbasin, rely on groundwater for drinking water. Groundwater quality, especially in the San Joaquin Valley, has been impacted by legacy and existing land uses and conditions. There have been impacts to water supplies with high levels of nitrate, and these supplies cannot be safely used for drinking without treatment. This results in significant economic costs to address this problem, and also means that there are a lot of diverse sources of nitrate that need to be managed. There is now a new state, Central Valley-wide in particular, regulation, and there's a nitrate control program that was implemented earlier this year that will help to address this nitrate problem. So I'm going to show a few maps next, the first being about the distribution of nitrate specific to the Solano Subbasin. This image shows where the maximum concentrations of nitrate have been measured in wells in the Solano Subbasin. While most wells have data that show nitrate levels below the drinking water standard, that means all the colors on this map except for those that are red. There are a number of locations in the northeastern part of the Solano Subbasin, so those that are red locations where nitrate exceeds the drinking water limit of 10 milligrams per liter. This map is showing the data collected on the occurrence of arsenic in groundwater in the Solano Subbasin, and it shows again the maximum concentrations of arsenic that have been measured in wells in the subbasin. While most of the wells here have data that show arsenic levels below the drinking water standard, again, all the colors except for the red ones, there are a few locations, the red ones, in the Solano Subbasin that show locations where arsenic exceeds the drinking water limit of 10 micrograms per liter. So this standard, notice I mentioned micrograms per liter, that standard has a limit that is 1,000 times lower than it is for nitrate. The next map here is on hexavalent chromium. This is another constituent of interest. There's at least two forms of chromium. One is referred to as total chromium. This one that we're showing is hexavalent chromium. That's a more toxic form of chromium. And again, we're showing the maximum concentration that's been measured in wells located in the subbasin. And although there is a standard, a drinking water standard for total chromium, so not what's shown on this map, and that total chromium standard is 50 micrograms per liter, there is not yet a drinking water standard for hexavalent chromium. However, the state met last week to discuss the potential standard that may be proposed as early as the early part of next year for hexavalent chromium. Sorry, fewer wells have data for hexavalent chromium. The map here that we see shows varying levels as having low levels below 10 micrograms per liter. And the red dots are those wells that have levels above 20 micrograms per liter. So how do nitrate and other chemicals get into well water? Sometimes groundwater that's used for beneficial purposes comes from tens of feet below the land surface, and sometimes it's produced from hundreds of feet below the land surface. A well is installed and equipped with a pump in order to bring groundwater from water-bearing sediments to the land surface for drinking water and other uses. The image on this slide is a very simple picture of a well structure, and I'm going to highlight a couple of key features of this structure. There's an outer pipe or casing that has slotted section. This is called a well screen that's pointed to there, showing the photograph. And this is where the water enters the well at certain depths in the subsurface. There's also a gravel pack or filter pack that's placed along much of the exterior of the well casing. This creates a filter that holds back fine sediments in the subsurface when groundwater enters the screened area, and then it's pumped to the land surface. But most importantly, as part of this well structure, a properly constructed well has a grout seal that is placed from the land surface to the top of the gravel pack. A properly placed well seal helps reduce contaminants from being introduced at the land surface. It prevents them from entering the well, such as drainage water that moves toward the well and then affecting the quality of the groundwater pumped from the well. In this next slide, we're showing an image, several images, and there's one in the upper right-hand corner of the slide that shows a number of lines. These are all called cross-section locations, and they represent locations where we've prepared what are called these geologic cross-sections, and they represent the location of a downward vertical slice through the earth. And then as you look to the image on the lower right-hand portion of this slide, it shows a view from the air in this three-dimensional picture where Poudre Creek flows from west to east. And then the front part of this diagram shows this vertical slice where you look into the earth. And this is the location of a geologic cross-section. And then the largest image on this slide shows a closer view of the cross-section that goes from west to east across the northern portion of the Solano Subbasin. These cross-sections are prepared using reports that are generated by drilling contractors when they drill a well, and also oil and gas companies when they construct oil and gas wells. And we do these cross-sections to better understand the nature of the sediments in the subsurface, including their texture, the distribution of finer and coarser sediments in the subsurface. And this information helps us to characterize how groundwater occurs and moves in the subsurface. Now, in the earlier slides, we showed the varying levels of nitrate, arsenic, and hexavalent chromium across the subbasin. However, the levels of these constituents can vary by depth, depending upon how land and water use at the land surface may influence the movement of constituents to groundwater. An example of this is nitrate, which is typically found at higher levels in the shallower portion of the groundwater system. On the other hand, there are constituents such as arsenic and hexavalent chromium that are typically naturally occurring constituents in the subbasin, and the levels of these constituents are highly dependent on the geologic and also geochemical factors that influence their occurrence in groundwater. So there can be varying levels at varying depths of these naturally occurring constituents.
Vicki, we're at 30 seconds.
Okay, I'm almost done. Thank you. There are many different kinds of wells, and these include public or municipal supply wells serving many persons connected one or many wells as part of a system. The state requires regular testing of public supply wells to ensure that groundwater is safe. And these wells can have treatment to ensure the water is safe for drinking before it reaches homes. Private domestic wells are typically tested for bacteria and nitrate when they're initially constructed. However, following construction, there's no state requirement for testing a well, and it's really up to the owner to determine whether the quality of the water is maintained at a safe level. So as we go forward with the sustainability plan development, we want to help ensure that groundwater resources of sufficient quantity and quality are available for all of the future beneficial uses and users of groundwater in the basin. The plans under development the plan sections are being posted for public review and comments, and the full draft will be available next fall for review. So as we develop the plan, we're seeking your input, we're seeking public input in general on the concerns you have about drinking water or other groundwater issues and priorities. So thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Vicki, for that really quick but really thorough overview of drinking water in the subbasin. We are going to now move into our panel, but as Danielle said in the chat, if you have any questions for Vicki, feel free to type them into the chat. While I'm introducing our panelists, Danielle just launched a quick poll to give us a sense of what type of water user you are. And who we have with us today. So if you can answer that poll, I will introduce our wonderful panelists that we have with us. First and foremost, we have Ali Rezvani from the Division of Drinking Water at the State Water Resources Control Board. He'll be speaking first. And then we have Chris Hunley, who is the Supervising Environmental Specialist at Sacramento County Environmental Management Department. And then lastly, we have Anthony Endow, who is the Senior Environmental Health Specialist at Solano County Environmental Health. And we recognize that this subbasin addresses and covers many different layers in areas across Sacramento and Solano counties. So we brought all of this panel together today to share a little bit more about how drinking water is managed locally. So with that, we'll start off with Ali. And while you're bringing up your screen, it looks like we're waiting on a few more folks. If you haven't completed the poll yet, we're at about 61%. Please take a second to complete the poll. Ali, we can see your slides. Okay, I'm gonna end the poll to give Ali your due time. It looks like we have a pretty even split between domestic well owners or users, municipal water suppliers, folks in small scale farming, and other. If you selected other, please type into the chat what type of water user you consider yourself to be. And with that, Ali, you can take things away.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Ali Rezvani. I'm with State Water Resource Control Board, Division of Drinking Water in Sacramento and District Engineer in Sacramento. I'm going to be just talking briefly the drinking water that everybody's receiving, who's basically regulating it and watching over the quality of the drinking water.
Raina, I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt for just one moment. It seems like we have our channels crossed. On the English channel, we're hearing the Spanish, not hearing English.
I wasn't on a channel, so perhaps if I... Sorry about this.
I switched mine to off and I can hear the English now.
Okay, yeah, we might have to, if everyone can go into the little globe at the bottom of the panel and just hit off, you should be able to, I'm not sure why that happened. That's a technical glitch. Ali, I will turn things back over to you.
Testing.
Yeah, we're hearing you, Reina.
Okay. I think interpretation has been turned off.
Yeah, I
And-
tried turning it off and turning it back on.
Okay.
Should we go in and select our language again?
I think let's just keep it off, and Reina can record in the Spanish channel. And Ali, if you actually want to move the mic just slightly closer to your face, we will hand things back over to you. Thank you.
Okay, how is that?
Much better.
Good. Just to continue on, State Water Resources Control Board has 9 regional water quality control boards that usually deal with surface water, and they try to basically implement the Federal Clean Water Act. And then Division of Drinking Water was basically brought in from the Health Department back in 2014 to the State Water Board. There are 24 district offices that oversee public water systems throughout the state, all the way from Oregon border to down to Mexican border. And also there are other agencies and then other divisions within State Water Board that do watch over and regulate water. One of them would be Division of Water Quality. There are research and planning and performance for groundwater management programs and other offices. As far as the drinking water goes, the drinking water at state level, it's the state of California has primacy from US EPA for to implement the drinking water standards. And then in some counties where the county is capable of, and they have chosen to be the primacy. Some of this responsibility has been transferred to the county. Those counties are called local primacy agencies, and those counties will take care of all the public water systems between 15 to 200 service connections. Anything above 200 service connections are regulated. All the public water systems above 200 service connections are regulated by the state. There's also other classifications for water systems. There are state smalls that are between 5 and 14 service connections, and there are local small water systems that are 2 or to 4 service connections or more than 25 residents. Again, these are regulated by the local county health departments or local agencies. And then domestic water systems or individual homes, they are not regulated by any agency. Now, as far as the public water systems, what are they required to do? They need to demonstrate to the State Water Board that they have the adequate technical, managerial, and financial capability to effectively operate their public water system for a long term, to be able to take care of all the, make all the repairs and then make sure that emergencies are met. They need to obtain a permit from State Water Board, and in cases of smaller systems that are regulated by local primacy agencies, they need to get secure permits for operation of those public water systems. They need to continuously monitor for sources water quality like nitrate, which is monitored on an annual basis, and distribution system such as lead and copper. And some of these regulations are state, some of them are federal. For example, Hexavalent Chromium is a state regulated maximum contaminant level. It has a state regulated maximum contaminant level, whereas lead and copper monitoring of distribution system is basically a federal rule. And they need to properly notify their consumers of the water quality, and this is usually done annually through a consumer confidence report that is distributed to all the water users by July 1st of each year. For example, in 2020, by July 1st of 2020, CCRs or consumer confidence reports for 2019 were distributed. They need to install treatment if their source is impaired for one reason or the other. For example, nitrate, arsenic. They need to install treatment to make sure that the water quality that is being served to the people meets drinking water standards. And they need to also operate these treatments by people who are certified. And the certification is always done by State Water Board. We have another section in our Division of Financial Assistance that goes over the certification process and certifies water treatment operators and distribution system operators. Now, as far as the public water system permitting and groundwater management goes, the county or environmental health departments identify potential public water systems and land use well and permitting phase, and then they refer them to the State Water Board. And what we do, we'll look for potential contaminants or issues that could be present or be created by, say, drilling a well near a place near, let's say, if it's too close to a sewage treatment plant or a sewage cesspool or a septic tank. These are some of the things we'll look at, and then we basically allow a well to be permitted, and then we are in continuous contact with the local health department to make sure that these well permits are issued to at the right location, and then for systems that do not use their well anymore, which happens quite often, those wells are usually deactivated, and then sometimes letters are sent to the local health department as far as these wells are no longer in service, and sometimes they are destroyed, and sometimes, in most cases, they are separated from the water system distribution system. And as far as the information goes, there's more information that you may be able to obtain. There are tools like Gamma. There's a lot of on this Gamma online tools. If you are located in some area, you wanted to see how is your groundwater, is it impacted by contaminants such as PFAS or hexavalent chromium or other contaminants, you may be able to go ahead on this site and then look up and see how the area you're in and the groundwater, is it contaminated or not. There's also another tool that is put together by Division of Drinking Water. And what we do over here, there's a lot of information on public water systems, for example, City of Sacramento, or other water systems, City of San Francisco, and certain information with respect to their operation, management, and their sources are collected and inputted in a database, and that database is available to the public to review. That is basically a very, very short version of what we do. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Okay, thank you, Ali. We'll be taking questions at the end. I've already gotten some directly to me, but feel free to type them to everyone. And next up, we have Chris Hunley from Sacramento County Environmental Management. Chris, we will be sharing your screens. Perfect. Thank you, Ali.
Thank you for the introduction, Emily, and thank you for everyone calling in on this Thursday evening for this pretty important topic, and that's about our groundwater sustainability and the water quality items related to it. Just really quickly, I'm on the other side of the river, so I work with Sacramento County, and our program is limited to Sacramento County, and I just want to give you a real quick rundown on what we do. Like other well permitting agencies, Sacramento County's program is based on code that's written into California law. And so we try to follow along with ensuring that wells are going to be sited and built in a manner that meets state requirements. We do that through our permits and inspection program. And a lot of the work that we do, sort of the behind the scenes work, is our really strong partnerships with other folks, including Ali's group and the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board. Next slide. On the front end of well permitting, like many other permit applications, like a building permit, there's a lot of information that we take on the administrative end, which includes, pardon me, I'm in a new office that if I don't move around, it turns the lights off on me. And as part of the application, we're looking at, one, is there a properly licensed contractor building the well? And we look at the location, we look at the well construction features, and on that middle slide, you can see that's sort of, it's a hand-drawn example, but we're looking at the well siting. So where is this well proposed to be located? Is it near an existing septic system? Is it near on the very far side of the slide? Is it in an area that's located near a known groundwater contamination plume? In that particular example, that is a former dry cleaner, and that very sort of toxic substance has seeped into the ground, and it's spread out into a very, very large area. And we collaborate with folks like the Central Valley Regional Water Quality Control Board to see if if it's appropriate to site a well in that area. Next slide, please. From the boots on the ground perspective, I wanted to circle back to Vicky's PowerPoint, where she had listed out the typical well structure. Well permitting agencies, we're out in the field to make sure that the designs that are developed by contractors and engineers, they're doing it to that spec. And so a very, very important part of it in the work that we do is the annular seal placement inspection. And so after the very long, sometimes week-long process to drill a well and place the gravel pack and set the casing, that upper surface component needs to be safeguarded. And so when you have that large borehole, our group goes out to make sure that the right type of material is placed down the hole and it's anchored into a clay layer or some other impervious stratum. And that helps minimize any movement between the surface and groundwater. Once that well is completed, the contractors send in a well completion report. Our team looks at that and we compare it against the initially submitted permit. And we're looking at what was reported in the field, what was proposed, and then what was actually reported. And so those construction specs need to add up. And if they don't, we need to have a discussion or look through our notes to ensure that there was a reason why. And the final component is looking at the surface construction features. So once the well has been drilled down to depth, the grout seal has been placed, all of the sort of the visual part that you and I would look at, we're there to make sure that it's sealed up tightly and appropriately so that any surface contamination does not migrate down into the groundwater. Looks like my time is up. I'm going to just fast forward towards the end if possible. Two more slides. And really a lot of the work that we do is the data that we collect is how deep are the wells? Are they located in a safe manner? And is the water that you're going to drink out of your private well, is it built in a manner that will help safeguard you?
Perfect. Thank you, Chris. And last but not least, we will have Anthony with us from Solano County Environmental Health. And if we could pull up his slides as well.
Okay. Can you all hear me?
Yep, we can hear you.
All right, thank you. Thank you for having me on this. I just wanted to give a brief overview of the Solano County groundwater monitoring programs and our well permitting programs. I feel a lot of my presentation may have already been covered by Chris, Vicky, and Ollie, but we'll have a go at it. Next slide, please. Really briefly then, we'll go through a well program overview, including the Dixon consultation zone and some of the other unique features within Solano County. We'll also discuss briefly the state small water systems that we have oversight of. Again, I think Ollie already described them somewhat. And then Solano County does have a biosolids land application program. And there should have been a number 4 there. I must have left it off. We also have an on-site wastewater treatment program, a septic system program. And I think Chris hit upon this, but it's important to note, the county programs, we're often just looking at siting and requirements for individual lots. We're not really looking, we don't have a 30,000-foot view that maybe the water board might have. Next slide, please. So Solano County Code, it incorporates by reference the California well standards for the construction, setbacks, annular seal, and abandonment requirements for well construction. Any water well being constructed within Solano County will come through environmental health. As part of the permitting process, if wells are constructed within water district boundaries, typically we will notify the water district to make sure that that well is enrolled in whatever backflow prevention program that water district may have, so that the owner does not inadvertently mix the well water with the treated public water system water. Next slide, please. And I think Vicky hit upon this a little bit. There are areas within Solano County that are known to have high levels of nitrates, arsenic, and Chromium-6. I believe that some of the public water systems that encounter these elevated levels, they are able to blend water from different wells to stay compliant. Primarily, they've run into issues with some of the revisions in the downward for what the maximum contaminant levels are. Some of the areas within Solano County are also known to be water scarce. There are certain areas, this hits upon the 3rd bullet point, there are certain areas that are serviced by non-public point of entry water systems within the county. These are basically raw water systems that the raw water is treated when it enters the house. These systems are no longer considered compliant, and they're somewhat legacy systems that the state is trying to move past. Currently, there are no restrictions on the number of wells on property or the depth that you can drill a well on your own property. Next slide, please. And just briefly, Solano County currently has 9 permitted state small water systems. These are small systems between 5 and 14 service connections with service populations less than 25 persons for 60 days out of the year. They're required to submit quarterly bacteriological samples and once every 3-year nitrate samples. Most of these systems are large family plots, or they may be, I think we have one small apartment complex that's that operate their own state small water system. Next slide, please. And briefly, and again, our biosolids land application program, I just included this because this does have the potential to impact groundwater. The water board, though, through one of their general orders, does control the amount of plant available nitrogen that is applied. So, and that does limit the amount of nitrates that are introduced into the county. This is also kind of paralleling our septic system program, where we do look at the construction and siting of septic systems to ensure that they don't impact groundwater. And I think that's all I have.
Excellent. Thank you, Anthony. And we're actually going to welcome Vicky and our 3 panelists back up to the screen for some time for questions. And the first question actually came to me directly, but is related to one question that we received in the group chat about how the counties work together to manage water quality. And specifically, if we could hear also from Sacramento County and understanding how Sacramento County is relevant to the Solano or connected to the Solano Subbasin. If anyone wants to take that one.
Hi, Emily. This is Chris with Sacramento County. In terms of the sort of collaborative nature with Sacramento County and the Solano Subbasin work group, that's a great question. You may have seen earlier in Vicky's very nice presentation that there is a section in Sacramento County, we refer to it as the Delta area, but towns like Walnut Grove, Isleton, and a lot of the sort of independent private well owners that live in that area, that is in fact part of the Solano Subbasin group. And like with many other agencies that we work with, as the GSAs and GSPs are put in place, you know, we have strong relationships with a lot of those folks, and we look forward to helping, you know, with our part in terms of Sigma.
And can I just add for a quick second? Is Linda Sacramento County GSA that again emphasize it's the Delta area, and that I have been coordinating with Chris, and I just want to thank him again for showing up and answering that correctly. Thank you.
You taught me well.
That was your test, Chris. One question from Al, and I think this was during Ali's presentation. If you could just define biosolids, some folks in the room may not know what those are, what their origins are, and why they should be of concern.
I'm sorry, that was for me
You are
or for
muted.
Ali?
Looks like Ali.
Biosolids?
Yep.
I mean, our Office of Drinking Water doesn't regulate biosolids by any means.
I may be able to help with that.
Yeah.
Biosolids is the solid fraction of everything that runs through the wastewater treatment plants. Biosolids is the solid fraction of what's left after the wastewater is separated out. And biosolids, it's not raw sewage sludge. It's treated to certain federal and state requirement standards prior to land application. I hope that addressed the question.
Great, thank you, Anthony, and apologies for that mix-up. Question, I think this will probably be our last question. Just want to make sure we have time for breakout groups. About how many abandoned wells exist in the groundwater basin. There's an understanding that if old ones leak, there can be some groundwater quality issues, but sealing wells is terribly expensive, so rarely done. Can a property keep digging new wells without properly closing its old ones?
I'm happy to jump in first. With Sacramento County, it's a great question first and foremost, so thank you for the person that asked it. A lot of these legacy abandoned wells, you're exactly right, they're super expensive to deal with. The part when we locate them, we try to convey to folks that the potential issues with groundwater quality, or frankly, someone falling in or an animal falling in, you know, it's immeasurable compared to the amount of money spent on properly abandoning the wells. That being said, we have around 1,100 abandoned wells throughout Sacramento County. Many have been destroyed. The others have been put into an inactivation status, and we make sure that the surface, you know, it's sealed up so that it's watertight and any surface degradation does not occur.
Great. Anyone else want to add to that?
I can add a comment. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Anthony.
I just wanted to add a comment that we do run into the same problem as Chris mentioned. It is expensive to abandon some of these wells. Oftentimes, property owners will state that they will keep the well as backup to, and they will maintain it to avoid having to destroy the well. This can run into problems if the property is transferred once, twice, 3 times, where the new owners now may not really be cognizant of their obligation to keep that well maintained and not cause contamination. So it is an ongoing struggle with some of these older wells.
I was going to mention there's also another program under the Irrigated Lands Regulatory Program that the regional board has purview over, that there are groundwater quality management plans that exist for coalitions throughout the Central Valley. And as part of that program, the coalitions have many things that they need to attend to ensure water quality is not further degraded or that it's improved. And one of those is tracking abandoned wells within the coalition area. And the regional board is seeking to have metrics to have the coalitions track, at what rate are they able to actually accomplish the objectives of that plan.
That's a great point, Vicki. Thank you. We do actually have time for at least one more question. So I'm actually going to jump to this next question that was put in the chat. If one of our speakers could comment on contamination that occurs through recharge and runoff and how that's mediated, what mechanisms are in place to mediate that?
So I could start, and I think one of the first things is to know, some of the particulars about where it's occurring. Sometimes these things can go, unidentified. So it's probably easier around, regulated facilities to know what's occurring and to be able to track that. Right now, there are some guidance documents under development, particularly because it's of interest for groundwater sustainability agencies as they look ahead to try and encourage and implement groundwater recharge projects, to be aware of what's within the area that they're intending to consider recharge, so that it doesn't create an unintended consequence by, on the one hand, getting more water in the ground and having that groundwater system replenished, but trying to avoid, contamination in the process of the otherwise what would be considered a benefit.
Okay, I'm going to just do one more question that was sent to me. Who do I call if I'm on a private well and I'm concerned about my water quality?
If you're within Solano County, you can definitely call Solano County Environmental Health. We have resources. We can direct you to some testing labs. We can send you some of the state guidance for what to look for in your water if it's discolored or if it has an odd smell or something like that. But you could definitely call Environmental Health for something like that.
Sacramento County is also the same way, and there's a great free resource which is called RCAC for private well owners, and it is especially important in rural communities. They will come out, and if you have a concern, they will assess your well free of charge, and also hand out those resources that Anthony was talking about earlier.
Mm-hmm. Great, and thank you for the folks that are putting in the chat the information about the Rural Community Assistance Corporation, or RCAC. It's a great plug. We tried to get them to come this evening, but they were booked out. So with that, I am going to wrap things up. I want to thank all of our wonderful speakers for presenting. If you all can join me in thanking them in the chat, or you can use the fun reactions to thank them, give them a round of applause. We are going to head into breakout groups now. But before we do, if Danielle or Atlee, you can just share the breakout group links. We're actually going to cut one breakout group. So Deanna, you will no longer be facilitating a group since we have slightly less folks here than registered. We have a designated facilitator for each of our breakout groups from the Freshwater Trust, a local government commission, or Ag Innovations team, who will be guiding you through the questions. We have about 15 minutes in breakout groups. and we will come back together at 6:45 for some wrap-up resources and to hear from the Safe and Affordable Drinking Water Fund program. So it looks like some of the links are still coming through the chat for breakout groups. I am going to send you all off now. And facilitators, you should also have links to these. So you should have everything that you need. All right, we'll see you in 15 minutes. I'm looking forward to reviewing the notes from the breakout groups. With that, I'm just going to wrap up with a few last minute details and resources that we have developed to continue supporting those of you that want to learn more about drinking water in your area. As I mentioned earlier, our team has focused on engaging disadvantaged areas, which is defined by the Department of Water Resources based on median household income. And what we found using statewide data is that about 30% of the subbasin falls within these economically disadvantaged areas. And we've actually mapped this out as one of the resources that our teams put together, and we'll share that through the chat now. And while these income-based guidelines are helpful in understanding a community's economic welfare, our team has been looking beyond income to identify other types of vulnerabilities that may impact a group's ability to respond to water shortages and contamination of their water resources. Many water users in the subbasin are very lucky to have a wealth of multiple sources of water, like Lake Berryessa and the Solano project, which reduces their reliance on groundwater because they have access to those surface water resources. However, some communities, as we've heard today, are reliant only on groundwater, and specifically those that are reliant on shallow groundwater, such as domestic well users, small-scale farmers, and community water systems like mobile home parks and schools. And those folks have a higher chance of being impacted by dry conditions than users that have access to deeper wells or users that can get additional supplies from surface water, like rivers. And we've mapped out where the well locations, well density rather, and small water systems are located in the subbasin. They're also in that map that was shared through the chat. And as well as where the project team is looking for more data about groundwater users under that data gaps tab. So I encourage you to look through that resource. And if you're not sure who supplies your water, particularly for small community water systems, there's an excellent tool available that we'll also share through the chat now to determine who manages and makes decisions about your water supply, the groundwater quality in your area where you live, potential impacts to groundwater supply from future droughts, and how to get involved in local groundwater management decisions. Of course, you all are already engaged by nature of attending this meeting and hopefully future GSA collaborative meetings. But this tool was developed by the Community Water Center. It's really helpful both for your own water supply as well as statewide to find out some of this information. And the state is also working on expanding access to clean, safe drinking water. And with us, we have Brian Kidwell from the Safe and Affordable Drinking Water Branch Division at the State Water Resources Control Board to talk a little bit more about the Safe and Affordable program. So Brian, I'm going to turn things over to you.
Great. Are you able to see my slides?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that introduction, Emily. As Emily said, my name is Brian Kidwell, and I am the senior engineer for our Northern Engagement Unit, which is within the new SAFER section within the Division of Drinking Water with the State Water Resources Control Board. So tonight, my brief presentation will give some brief details on Senate Bill 200, the Northern California Engagement Unit, and I'll introduce you to my staff. Are you not seeing my screen? It says the host has asked me to start your video.
We're seeing the screen, we're not seeing you.
Oh.
We can see you now, though. Oh.
There we go. All right, better. We'll also cover the engagement unit and services, or what tasks we are, what we're currently working on, and also how to engage with the Northern Engagement Unit, and whether that's through, direct communication and reaching out, or through the district or LPA office, or through our Division of Financial Assistance or other entities. And so to give a little background on the Safe and Affordable Drinking Water Fund, or SB Senate Bill 200, the fund was established by Senate Bill 200 in July of 2019 to address funding gaps and provide solutions to water systems, especially those serving disadvantaged communities, and to address both their short-term and long-term water deficiencies. The fund provides $130 million per year through 2030 to enable the State Water Board to help develop and implement sustainable solutions for small water systems with drinking water standard violations. Solutions may include consolidation with larger water systems, operation and maintenance costs, building local technical and managerial capacity, providing interim replacement water, and administrators to run smaller systems. And the SB 200 also created the new SAFER section within the Division of Drinking Water, which the Northern Engagement Unit is located. And so the Northern Engagement Unit really focuses on areas from Monterey north and from Stanislaus County north. So we have an engineer assigned to the Monterey area. Her name is Guadalupe Gonzalez, and she covers the counties listed here on the map: Santa Cruz, Monterey, etc. We have Maggie Godino, who covers the Stockton area, including San Joaquin, Stanislaus, Contra Costa, those counties. We have Betty, who covers our Sacramento area, and she also has a few projects in the Sonoma area. And then we have Stephen Coe, who's in our Sonoma area. And then we have Ariel Chavez, who covers the northern part of California. And so some of the services that the Northern Engagement Unit, quote unquote, renders or tasks that we're assigned with are really to focus on the human right to water list and water systems that are out of compliance or on that list. We are also focusing on consolidations and water partnerships. We are also working on the implementation of administrators, which is a new authority given to the State Water Resource Control Board. We also work with water systems and, getting interim solutions such as bottled water or hauled water. We also focus on Senate Bill 1263 projects, and these are regarding new proposed public water systems. And we're also here for general assistance and any kind of outreach or training that we can supply. And so as far as the human right to water list, that's the list the State Board has come up with systems that are out of compliance with, primary or secondary MCL, have open enforcement actions. And so the engagement unit's primary focus are systems on the human right to water list that are out of compliance with the primary MCL, such as nitrate, arsenic, uranium, etc. But we also focus on what we're deeming our human right to water list plus. And those are systems that basically they don't quite meet the criteria for the human right to water list, but they still need attention or need to be engaged. And so those could be systems that, are consistently having bacteriological issues or inadequate capacity or water outages, things of that nature. And time permitting, we're also focusing on systems that are at risk. So maybe they don't have an issue yet, but it's around the corner. Primary MCL constituents numbers are on the rise. They have wells that are producing sand and are looking like they're going to fail, things of that nature. As I mentioned in the overview, another main focus of the engagement units are consolidations. And so we have voluntary consolidations, which include a physical consolidation, and that's where a larger entity or a receiving water system would physically absorb the distribution system of a smaller system. And then we also have master meter consolidation. This could be such as like a mobile home park purchases water from a neighboring city. And so the neighboring city isn't responsible for the mobile home park's distribution system, but just sells them water via master meter. The state board also has mandatory consolidation authority. So we have the ability to order consolidations. And in order for us to order a consolidation, there are many boxes that need to be checked. But to put it simply, the water system has to be a disadvantaged community, and it has to consistently fail to provide an adequate supply of safe drinking water. Other than those on the human right to water list, it's time permitting. Obviously, we are trying to promote consolidation as much as possible and help systems out and domestic well owners, join consolidations where it makes sense. One of the overall goals of the Division of Drinking Water is to reduce the number of public water systems in California. And, we really want to focus on regionalization projects. So when we have a consolidation project, we really want to look in the surrounding area about who else is around that could, potentially join this consolidation, and whether that's domestic well owners, other small water systems, et cetera. As I previously mentioned, the state board, we have the authority to order an administrator. And so an administrator can either be a full scope administrator that has full control of all aspects of the water system, or it could be a limited scope administrator. Maybe a water system needs help, with their water rates and developing a capital improvement plan. And so that's something that's more geared toward the financial side. Again, but before the state board can order an administrator, it must be a designated water system, which means it must be a public water system or state small water system that serves a disadvantaged community as defined in section 116681, and that the state board finds consistently fails to provide an adequate supply of affordable, safe drinking water. Like I mentioned earlier, we are also involved with interim solutions. Maybe there's a longer solution on the horizon. Maybe a treatment plant is in the works, and there are plans and specs being developed. And in the meantime, we need to look at bringing in bottled water, for contaminants such as nitrate, which are acute. Or maybe we need to bring in hauled water, or maybe there's a consolidation project in the works, but it's going to take 5 years. And so we want to look at installing point of use or point of entry treatment. So we're involved in projects with interim solutions as well. As I mentioned in the overview, we're also involved with new proposed public water systems. All new proposed public water systems are required through Senate Bill 1263 to submit a preliminary technical report. And in this report, these proposed water systems, they must investigate consolidation, whether it's physical or managerial consolidation. And we also need to look at the costs associated with being a public water system. And so my unit is currently reviewing more complex new water systems, and some of the district offices are handling the more straightforward public water systems. We're also here for general assistance and outreach training. I mean, we're here to help systems and domestic well owners, with scoping of projects or submitting TA requests to the Division of Financial Assistance. We're also here to do community outreach and stakeholder engagement. I mean, in a lot of consolidation projects, there's a lot of outreach and engagement that needs to take place to get everybody on the same page. And so really, what's the best way to engage with the engagement unit is really to use that map that I provided in the beginning of this presentation, which is also available on the State Water Board's website. I'm going to list emails and phone numbers so you can see who's exactly assigned to your region. But there's also, we can be contacted through the LPAs and district offices. We can be contacted through the Division of Financial Assistance. Maybe you already have a project or some kind of application in the works. And lastly, through any other entities out there. We work closely with LAFCO and the CPUC and CRWA, RCAC, and different environmental justice groups. So there's numerous ways to get engaged with us. So feel free to reach out. And with that, that's the end of my brief presentation.
Thank you, Brian. Short and sweet. Absolutely, but lots of really helpful resources there. And really appreciate you joining us this evening. With our last few moments, Danielle, if you just want to launch that quick poll, this is actually taken from one of our groundwater user surveys to get a better sense of what your top groundwater management goals are and what your priorities are. And this is for folks that live and work within the Solano Subbasin. And as you are completing that poll, we have a few just quick reminders. We'd love to see you at some of our future public meetings for the GSA Collaborative. You can find out more on solanogsp.com, and that's where you can sign up for the newsletter, which has information about all of the public meetings. Right now, there's the opportunity to actually public comment on Section 1 of the Groundwater Sustainability Plan. It ends tomorrow, so it would be a very quick review, but for future sections, you'll get notified through that Solano GSP website. So we hope that you do sign up for the newsletter so that you can comment on future sections. We also encourage you to complete the groundwater survey. We can share through the chat as well. I know we're not meeting in person right now, but in the future, if you are meeting in person and it would be helpful to have printed copies of the survey, we have resources to help print and distribute these surveys. So please contact me. My email contact information is at the bottom of the slide there. And then the last resource we have is was developed with the Freshwater Trust, the Groundwater Guide, to help provide some background information about the Solano Subbasin. It's also a bilingual resource for folks that are Spanish speaking. So please do share that. And if you have any questions, of course, feel free to reach out. We had, let's see, I think we didn't quite get full participation here, but we're seeing strong support at the top for reliability of groundwater supply, as well as quality of groundwater supply, which is fitting for our topic for today. So we will capture those poll results and make sure that they're included in our notes. But with that, I just want to thank you all. We're a minute over for your time. I hope you learned something new today. We have a quick feedback survey that we'll share in the chat to let us know how we did, and if you have any other questions or topics that you'd love to learn more about as it pertains to groundwater. So if we could share that in the chat, that SurveyMonkey link. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful evening, and we hope to see you at some of our public meetings in the new year.
And have a lovely holiday as well. Great to see everyone.
Great. Thank you, Emily.
Thank you, everyone.
Well,
Thank you.
Holidays.
Thank you.